welcome back to Deviants. We are on episode number 2. Can you fucking believe it? I should be getting an award, some kind of a ribbon of recognition, because if you know anything about me, getting past episode 1 of any series I start, that is breaking new fucking ground. Fingers crossed, we're moving into new, uncharted territories. Now, to those people that have mistakenly come across this video and see that subtitle and think, "Get in my belly" is a reference to eating disorders, this video is not about anorexia or bulimia. Though you will be throwing up by the end of it, just not for the reason you think. And why is that? Well, that's because we're talking about vor. Now, if you were to search up that term on DeviantArt, you would get 190,674 results. That is more than the total population of Samoa. Could you imagine an entire island nation full of nothing but Jeffrey Dahmers? You can if you visit DeviantArt, because that is what we are looking at. Now, scrolling through the results, you start to get a vague notion of what this whole vor thing is about. I mean, it is a mystery. I don't know if you'll catch on. You've got to really puzzle it together. But how would you explain it to, a loving relative? Say you're at a Thanksgiving dinner and there's grandma and grandpa, all your uncles and your aunts, all the cousins, everybody's gathered around there enjoying a nice big fucking turkey. And grandma looks across the table and says, "Honey, I just looked at your DeviantArt and it says you're into vor. Could you tell me what that's about, sweetheart? Could you explain it to Grandma Pumpkin?" Well, I've got the perfect response that I think really sums it up and describes it pretty succinctly. You'd look at your grandmother with a big smile on your face and you'd say, "Well, Grandma, vor is pretty much erotic cannibalism. I get an erection at the idea of people living inside my stomach." And that's perfectly sane and reasonable. In this current year environment, I have a feeling that your grandparents would stand up immediately and begin to applaud. How stunning and brave a butterfly you are, flying against the breeze. But hey, we shouldn't be assholes here. We shouldn't judge a book by its cover, or in this case, the muffled screams coming out of somebody's abdomen. We should really take a look at the content and try to get a better understanding of this particular interest that people have in this subject matter. And what better way to do that than with the written word? So sit back and relax as I read to you this amazing piece of literature from Tannicus Fox, entitled Shadow plus Sonic Vor, published on November 24th, 2007. Now, due to time constraints, I'm going to confine this to the last portion of the story, otherwise this would be a 15-minute reading. And I'm sure you don't want that. I don't want that. You don't want that. I don't even think Tannicus Fox wants that. Sonic wiggled about in the soft, spacious yet tight and muscular belly of Shadow. He couldn't help but sigh. At least he tried, but he couldn't help but grin. Shadow had been a good opponent, and was claiming the spoils of his victory. At least Sonic found solace in this way of going. He'd become part of something stronger than himself. Shadow's hand rubbed over his swelling girth as more of Sonic piled into it. He removed Sonic's shoes promptly, his socks right afterwards. With a shove on his feet and another swallow, Sonic had slid in up to his ankles. Only the very feet. He was so famous for remaining outside of Sonic's... Jesus. Only the very feet he was so famous for, remaining outside of Shadow's jaws. As Sonic was crammed into the tight but expanding stomach, he reflected upon all the events that had occurred. He and Shadow had fought several times, encountered each other several times. Even with clear hatred, they had become more like rivals than enemies. They even had a casual conversation before the final showdown. It was a fair fight. Sonic and Shadow were evenly matched, but apparently Shadow was better. Shadow slurped Sonic's feet into his maw with minimal effort, his tongue licking over his soles, causing Sonic's wiggling to increase. Shadow murmured as a result of the wriggling meal within him. After a moment he tried, and tilted his head back, and with a final gulp, claimed his victory over the world's hero. Sonic's feet quickly slid into the black hole of his throat, soon joining the rest of him in Shadow's tight gut. Shadow himself had fallen back. It had been quite some time since he had devoured such a large meal at once, and in one piece as well. He stroked a hand over his full stomach, practically purring. Soon the hedgehog would be all his, just as the world would soon be his master's. You put up a good fight, Faker. But as I said, there's only one ultimate life form. Shadow lay back, relaxing. With time near practically frozen around them, he could relax for a while. Sonic's squirms had stopped, but as he felt around, he realized Sonic was not dead. Sonic was apparently sleeping in his warm, slimy bedchamber. Shadow only chuckled. At least Sonic was able to admit defeat. He dozed off, his stomach soon emitting loud gurgles as it worked to break down and absorb the hedgehog within. When Shadow awoke, he stood up. Time was still going slow, thank goodness. As he gripped the emerald on the ground nearby, he looked down. Though the bulge had shrunk, it was still massive. He gave his stomach another pat. He blushed as he let out a large burp. Shadow had forgot about those coming with large meals. He chuckled as he picked up Sonic's gloves, socks, and shoes. Looking over the edge of the highway, he promptly tossed them over and watched them fall to earth. "Sayonara, Sonic the Hedgehog," Shadow said, before grasping the jewel and heading back to the Ark's control room. Well, what a fantastic and well-written story. And it's one of the originals. That is an old classic of Vor. Well, let's take a look at some of the comments that have been left throughout the years to see how people have responded to this. Jasmine Herm writes, "Now that was hot. Nice work there. Say, do you RP? 3? I RP sometimes. V. Would you like to RP with me? 3. I am very good. Would you like to RP with me? 3. I am very good. I'd need to find the time, XD. Could you let me know when you do? 3. I so want to RP with you. From a now deleted account. Hot damn. That was hot, XD. I love Shadow and I loved this. And I don't even draw or write Vor or anything. Not when characters are normal sized anyway. But OMG. This is written so well and I kind of blushed. You need to write more, 3. Why thank you, X3. I've actually written another fic where Silver eats Sonic. But since it's adult content, I can't post it here. D:. I need to write more PG stuff, yes? Why can't you post it here? Just stick a mature content filter on it, 3. Let's just say Silver chooses to insert Rod A into slot B. Therefore, it's not allowed on DA, X3. From Chibico Wolfie. Might as well save him so he isn't voiced by Jason. I like this story. That was yummy and hot, X3. Indeed. One less character bastardized by Griffith, D. And thanks, 3. I should write more Vor stuff, featuring the 4 Hedgies. Well, simply fantastic. People really appreciated the literary depth of this story. That was clearly what they were focused on. Nothing else. Just good, old-fashioned storytelling. A fictional world that you feel like you inhabit when you read it. But I don't want you to think that Mr. Fox here is just limited to writing. No, he's an artist too. He's been doing this for 11 years. His most recent piece was from May 21st, 2016. We'll take a look at a few selective pieces to give you an idea of the depth of his talent and the scope of his interest. Burp. Well then, it seems your friend underestimated how fast I can open my jaw. Do you feel more fortunate? By all means, try to hit me. I have plenty of room. Gurgle. This stunning piece of modern-day art is entitled Ma Likes His Meat Raw, Vor. Ma's a villain from the Sonic comics. He has the ability to create a vortex by opening his jaws, which can suck in anything. I figured I'd play with it, so here he is, fat and happy, and eager for more. And this stunning piece, which appears to be a giant raccoon holding a homosexual man hostage after taking him captive at a furry convention. I believe this is incomplete. I don't think he's sketched in the police trying to figure out what the fuck is going on and how it is that a giant living raccoon has come to life and abducted this clearly homosexual individual. The piece is entitled Cooper's Treasure, Vor. Just a little commission. That's the spot. Sly Cooper let out a relieved sigh as he felt soft, furless hands over his bulbous middle, which had recently ceased struggling and was now merely rolling with loud, lurid sloshes and gurgles. For his part, Caden was all too eager to service the monstrous raccoon's slated stomach, quite happy that in the choice between himself and the vixen. Otherwise, it might have been Carmelita rubbing his own gurgling bulge in the Master Thief's stomach. She was pretty good in bed, too. It was great to try her out one last time. Sly's head was in the clouds for a moment as nostalgia hit him, but he soon snapped back to reality. his maroon eyes focusing on Caden as a hand reached down, giving the demi-fox's rump a firm grip through his boxers, as the raccoon's teeth widened into a sharp grin. But again, I have something better now, and he comes with free delivery service too. Sly chuckled, referencing how Caden had served him quite well by fetching hapless victims, all of whom had been converted into fat and muscle on Sly's frame. Well, you know what? This is just good old-fashioned fun. These stories and these pictures, yeah, you're reading too much into it if this is slightly disturbing to you. It's not like he's going to turn into a spree killer. I mean, what could possibly go wrong?
I killed a man, slaughtered him, and ate him. Since then, he is always with me.
Okay, maybe that. Maybe that could go wrong. But you know what? Let's look at another example. Let's broaden our scope a little bit and look at a few more pieces by different artists, such as Owen Concord, formerly Trainmaster 185. Now, looking at his page, you might think we've jumped ahead to like episode 8, and this is an entirely different subject. But there's a lot of crossover. One thing you're going to notice about DeviantArt is no matter how fucked up the thing you're looking at, it's always going to cross over to other things. Now, this particular artist likes to anthropomorphize vehicles, namely trains and planes. And we're going to take a look at a few of his vor attempts when it comes to these things. An example of that would be this. Isn't that just wonderful? Look how happy that little plane is to be boiled alive inside that thing's stomach. Now you may be asking, what exactly is in its stomach? Is that jet fuel or stomach acid? How does this work? How does a living plane function? Does it take fuel up its asshole? Is that its fuel intake? There are a lot of questions that really are going to go unanswered. The picture, though, is entitled Owen's Tummy Spa Vor. Kira sometimes enjoys being inside Owen's tummy, especially on cold nights. Owen likes having his sweetheart inside him, and he rubs his tummy, feeling her. Now, judging from this picture, it would seem obvious that Owen's subconscious, the voice of his parents in the back of his head is screaming out as that pizza delivery truck. What the fuck is going on here? I'm not exactly sure of the proportions or the angles. I don't know if this is some kind of weird fucking flip-flopping automobile. Is this a bus? Is it a car? There are a lot of questions involved. All I know is that vehicle inside is begging for sweet fucking mercy. Save me. I think if you gave it a gun, it would probably blow its fucking engine out. And of course, it's entitled Pizza and Wieners Vor. Looks like Axel's extremely hungry, so he just started going after fellow vehicles who promote food products. Disclaimer, the Pizza Planet truck from Cars and Toy Story are from the Walt Disney Company, and the Wienermobile is a trademark of Oscar Mayer and its parent company, the Kraft Heinz Company. Thank God he said that. For a minute, I thought this was an actual advertisement for their products. Here's a lovely and touching painting. Thank you for rubbing my belly, Owen. It's really hard to get belly rubs in space. You're welcome, Victor. Your belly is just as squishy as mine when I'm fat. Plane Lover 66. Belly rubs for Victor. I rub his belly. Victor. Thanks. You're welcome. How does it feel? Keeps rubbing his belly. Victor. Good. That's great. I keep rubbing his big, squishy belly. Train Boy 101. Can I help? Owen. Yes. Keep rubbing Vic's belly. Okay. Starts rubbing nicely and great. Victor. Heyo. Go get yourself fat so you can get a belly rub too. Continues rubbing. Owen. All right. Then go eat some crap. Victor, I love it. Continues rubbing. So you've been to space? Continues rubbing. So you've been to space? Victor, yes, several times. There's nothing better than having a fun belly rub with another furry plane. Furry plane belly rub time. Owen enjoys his wolf suit a lot. That he ended up rubbing bellies with Shamu. The two really enjoy looking like animals.
I wanna be the very best, like no one ever was. To catch them is my real test, to train them is my cause.
rip in peace, little buddy. I needed a moment, a little bit of a palate cleanser. It's a little hard to tell with that account where Vor ends and other crazy shit begins, like tummy rubs in space. I'm only going off the assumption that because they all have this really gigantic gut, that there are living things inside of them. But I can't be 100% on that. So I had to pull back a little bit. You know, these crossovers, these different subjects coming together, they pretty much apply to everything. Like Five Nights at Freddy's. Where am I? He's asking. I'm going to guess somewhere on the autism spectrum. Between shitting in their diapers and playing with toy trains. Between those two goalposts, that's where you are, buddy. That is properly where you are sitting. This fantastic piece, which is just a bunch of furry shit thrown together. But it's an homage to a more famous piece of art that I think we're all familiar with. Never forget. Or this amazing image of a woman being eaten by a chicken man and then being vomited out. Now, I've noticed a lot of things when I've been browsing through the Vor tag, and even when I was browsing through the inflation tag. A lot of commissioned artists are working on these pieces. And I'd just like to take a moment out of this episode to talk about the poor life of a commissioned artist. Imagine there you are, somebody with actual talent and skill. Maybe you went to art school. Maybe you were the best kid in the class. You were the one among all your friends that had that ability to create images and to build worlds with a pen. And people respected that. And as you grew older, you thought you were going to have the most amazing career possible. You were going to set the world on fire. You finally move into your own place. It's time to pay the bills. And what happens? You end up drawing pictures on DeviantArt for people that only want to request penguins shitting in their own mouth. How wretched and depressing is that shit have to be for you? So I feel quite a bit of sympathy for the poor commissioned artist sons of bitches out there that are inundated with this shit, that have somebody come up to them and say, draw me a chicken man vomiting out a girl. Draw me a Five Nights at Freddy's picture. I want to see a furry gangbang, when all they want to do is create fucking art. Now, one of the things I never got to touch on last time when I did the first episode was the difference between the fantasy and the reality. Now, in that very first episode, we talked about inflation. Well, what is the difference between the fantasy of inflation and the reality of inflation? The fantasy is the idea that you can stick an air pump in yourself and blow yourself up like a balloon, and nothing bad will happen because that is sexy and hot. The reality is you're a Chinese boy who has a pneumatic air gun shoved up your ass, the force of which is so powerful, it knocks out your teeth and tears apart your tongue. They have to rush you into the emergency room, and the doctors have to do emergency surgery because the pressure buildup inside your organs and stomach is so intense that if they don't release the gases, you will rip apart and explode. Then you spend 8 fucking days in a coma. That is the difference between the fantasy of inflation and the reality of inflation. So what is the difference between the fantasy of Vor and the reality of Vor? Well, the fantasy is that you can have creatures and people and anthropomorphic airplanes jolly and jumping and living in your tummy like it's an itty-bitty little house, and that everything is fine. The reality is you will be beaten to death inside a prison. All right, well, that wraps it up for this episode of Deviants. A few quick pieces of news before I go here. I'm going to be looking for an alternative website to use next to YouTube to kind of put up addendum episodes. One of the problems here is obviously the terms of service. I'd love to show you the more fucked up shit, but there's no way I can put it up on YouTube. When I do find something, we will start adding on Deviants After Dark. Once I can do that, I'm not sure where I'm going to go. There are a couple of different sites I'm looking at. No, it's not LiveLeaks. I like LiveLeaks, and there's nothing the user base hates more than YouTubers shitting up the website with their crappy fucking videos. Vimeo and other sites like that, Dailymotion, they have issues as well. I will look for something, I will find something, and I will get this to work. So you can watch the sanitized version on YouTube, and if you want to see the more fucked up shit, you can click a link and it will take you to the After Dark portion where you will see the real nitty-gritty of what these deviants get up to on DeviantArt. And to close it out, if you find something that you think is just fucking amazing and you think it's related to an episode coming out, feel free to tweet it at me at DeviantIs, and I will take a look at it, and if it's good, I will put it in. and I will talk about it. If you've got an idea for an episode, or if you have an idea that relates to something that's coming up, feel free to put it in that and send it at me.